Hey Jets fans, this is Chris Nimbley, editor-in-chief of JetsInsider.com. Here is staff writer Joe Barone at Jets practice facilities in Florham Park. Jets traveled to New Orleans to take on the Saints. Bunch of stuff to talk about in that game, but let's just get right to it. The big news of the day. Todd Bowles announced that Muhammad Wilkerson will not be making the trip to New Orleans. He went out of his way to specifically not say that Muhammad Wilkerson was suspended, to not elaborate, to say if it was a new thing about missing another practice or meeting or something. He was very clear there. He wouldn't talk about going forward for the rest of the season, anything like that. But Muhammad Wilkerson was suspended.
Essentially. And that's the thing. When Todd Bowles was saying this in the press conference today, you could just see the anger in his eyes. He was very upset. It just came to a point. It just seems like he's had it. Like enough's enough already. And likely what happened, this is pure speculation. He probably missed the meeting again, or did something as far as behavior goes. And Todd Bowles said, you know what, enough's enough. He's not going to be making a trip to New Orleans. He's not going to be suited up, and he's going to be away from the team. And who knows what this means for their future? Because this is not the first time that he's been asked to either sit or be suspended per se from the team. So it's moving forward, it's a tough situation now. The Jets, they either have to cut their losses and realize what happened and move on.
Yeah, it's a semantic thing about the suspended, not suspended. Maybe they just simply decided, you're not worth this at any point in time. We're just going to sit you down for the rest of the season. Technically not a suspension, but you're just not going to do it. The smart part about that is they don't have to worry about him getting injured in those last couple of weeks.
Sure.
So it could have even been just that. They could have just huddled up together after the last time and all this and just been like, you know what, we're moving on from him. There's no point. He might not have done something else. It could have just been Maccagnan and them thinking, let's just rest him so he doesn't get hurt. Because if he gets hurt, then they're on the hook for the full guaranteed money next year. He's obviously not going to be back here next year.
Yeah.
So, but the thing is, you're right. Bowles was definitely angry. If you could see it, it's hard to feel too bad for Bowles here at this point because he brought a lot of this on himself. He let this go on for too long. He had the issues last year with him. He had the issues with Sheldon. And a lot of these players do love Bowles, and they do play hard for Bowles. Some of these players clearly don't respect Bowles, though.
And it just seems like that. And that's the sad part because the bulk of this roster, you could argue that they have been playing for him. I mean, the fact that this team was projected to go 0-16 and they have 5 wins is, you give applause for that. But the thing is, like you said, it's obvious that some players just don't have the same respect as other players do. And, like you said, we could be overshooting this whole thing, but it's probably not. It's probably the fact that he missed it. If I was Todd Bowles, I would have got a little bit of a better grip of this sooner. This way, maybe it wouldn't have spilled over because in the end, you're setting a bad precedent for the entire team. This team is littered with young players. You cannot let somebody as Muhammad Wilkerson, who's a veteran, who was a leader on this roster, just pick and choose his own battles and say, oh, listen, I don't want to go to this meeting, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, because that's not good. It doesn't reflect well on the entire team, it doesn't reflect well on the veterans or the young players, so that's why you have to try to get it all together before it really spills, and this time it just didn't.
Yeah, if people are overshooting now or jumping to conclusions now, we might be, because again, like I said, they could have just decided this is the time, but it's all catching up. Yeah. We're catching up to where it should be. If it got to this point, then they've simply decided it's kind of like an affection in the locker room, in the clubhouse with these younger players. You can see it. You have an attitude like that. Whatever the reason is, I don't like to criticize the person. I always talk about criticizing the person. We don't have any idea what's going on in his head, what the deal is. Maybe he just doesn't want to play football anymore. His heart's just not in it. Who knows? Right. And it does us no good to speculate like that. But the fact of the matter is, when you have a player continue to do this, continue to disobey and, show up the coach and not listen and not pay attention, and it's going to affect the rest of the team, and they had to go ahead and make this move now.
They had to, and now we were talking about it before, how the acquisition of Coney Ely helps moving forward. The fact that Leonard Williams seems like he has his head on straight right now. that defensive line right now, it's those two players and Steve McClendon. You got to keep in mind that these three players in particular, they're going to have to be the mainstays, the anchors of this defense, especially with the young players behind them. You have to try to show that, all right, one of our brothers is out, but we have to go out and still put on a show against New Orleans on Sunday.
Of course, one of the more alarming things about this is now this opens up a new D lineman spot for the Jets to go ahead and draft in the first round to get you guys really angry. But there is a game this week.
Yeah.
We could talk about Mo forever. That's the story of the day. And it'll probably be the story of Sunday, honestly, because they're playing the Saints, and no one's really giving them a chance here. And, yeah, there was the 0-16 talk. They've outplayed. The Saints are great. The Jets are not. It's in New Orleans, tough place to play. What do you think what's going to happen here?
Well, the Jets are 3-2 in New Orleans. Doesn't mean that anything about on Sunday, though. Saints like that to score a lot of points at home. They're ranked, I think they score about 31 points per game when they're at home. The Jets offense, the Jets in general just aren't a good road team this year or in the Todd Bowles era, so it just seems like all the odds are stacked up against them. Are we making predictions now?
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a tough one to watch on Sunday. I think New Orleans is going to take this one easily, about 35-13, I want to say. Bryce Petty might throw a touchdown to Robbie Anderson, which might, get hope. But overall, the defense just hasn't looked good the last few weeks. They've been giving up big play after big play against Carolina, Kansas City, last week against Denver, a team that lost, 8 in a row? It can't happen. And I just think that everything is against them on Sunday.
The only thing you can really hold out a little bit of hope for is the famous Patrick Ewing theory, where maybe getting rid of Muhammad Wilkerson will somehow make everything better, spark them, motivate them, have them come together. Because, again, as talented as Muhammad Wilkerson is, when he's out there playing like he was, he's a detriment to that defense.
Absolutely.
He had a couple good games spurt there, but otherwise he's been a detriment. He's made that defense worse just by his body, just being a body out there, and that's it.
Right.
The thing about the Saints this year, though, they're a completely different team than they have been. Number one, they're winning because they have a really good defense, and that's mostly due to Marshon Lattimore now coming in to be able to complete. But then on offense, it's not Drew Brees that's killing you. It's the running game that's killing you. And then Drew Brees picking you apart on top of that. But it's the running game leading the way with Ingram and Kamara. And that's just, I don't know that this Jets defense can do anything to slow the Saints offense down. Nobody's really been able to so far this year. And with Bryce Petty in there, maybe Robbie Anderson gets a big player too, because Robbie Anderson is that good.
Right.
And we've seen it before. Petty can't throw it deep, so maybe that happens. But this is going to be a blowout. 34-10, something along those lines sounds about right. The Saints are going to jump out right from the beginning. And if John Morton, Todd Bowles talked about waving the white flag and giving up against Denver, see what happens this Sunday, because it's going to probably be ugly. So, yeah. For Joe Barone, this is Chris Nimbley at JetsInsider.com. Be sure to check out JetsInsider.com for all the latest breaking news on all things Jets.